I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is adoption of agenda. I need a motion to adopt.
Agenda.
Support Van Sickle.
Moved by Romano, supported by Van Sickle. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Next item is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation. For those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on an item which is on today's agenda, there will also be a second opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak on any issue. Would anyone from the public like to speak on agenda items only? Going once, twice. We'll close public participation. Next item is appointment interview for Art Institute Authority. This is a board chair appointment for a 1 vacancy 2-year term to expire on April 30th, 2025. I need a motion to recommend this to full board for the nominee, Maria Silamianos.
So moved, Haw.
Support Van Sickle.
Made by Haw, supported by Van Sickle. Hi, Maria.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Let you say anything you like to.
I appreciate the opportunity, Don, for bringing this position to my attention. I'd certainly like to be considered to be the art authority on behalf of Macomb County for GIA.
Thank you, Maria. Let me see if I have any questions here. Seeing no speakers, I think we're all set. So we have a motion on the floor. Please vote. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
The final vote will be Thursday at full board. Next item is presentation, 6A, Finance Department 2023 First Quarterly Financial Report. I need a motion to receive and file.
Motion by Romano.
Moved by Wallace, supported by Romano. Afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see everybody again. Before you have the quarterly report for the first quarter of 2023. Again, way too early in the year to really report on anything unusual or kind of worth
Excuse me,
noting.
Mr. Smigiel, would you pull that speaker, that microphone?
I guess I should
closer
turn
to
it on.
you, down?
How's that? Is that better?
There you go.
Thank you. So anyway, first quarter report, too early to really comment on anything for the year. So far, we're busy closing last year, have closed last year, going through our audit at this point in time. I reported last time I was here for the quarterly report for Q4 of 22 that we'd be reporting a surplus in the general fund for 2022. That still holds true. And it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $14 million. I think I mentioned 12 million when I was here last. So healthy surplus for 2022. So with that, I'll conclude my comments and take any questions on the first quarter report if you have any.
Steve, that surplus, 14 million, which is a little higher than we anticipated, which is great. When is that adjustment going to be made, or has it already been made?
The adjustment. I mean, we've
just
closed
to
the books for 2022.
Correct. Are they closed?
Yeah,
And
we're
they've
going
been-
through the audit now, yes.
Okay.
Barring any audit adjustments.
Seeing no speakers, Steve, you're getting off easy today.
Thank you.
Please vote.
Ellen votes yes.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item, we'll take a motion for 6B and 6C together. This is a Treasurer's Office 2023 First Quarterly Report and the memorandum for the Macomb County Treasurer for the Macomb County Local Government Investment Pool Investment Brochure. Need a motion to receive and file 6B and C.
So moved by Nard. Support Wallace.
Moved by Nard, supported by Wallace. Christina, how are ya?
Very good. How are you?
Go ahead, you have the floor.
Okay, I just wanted to know if there was any questions regarding the first quarter investment report portfolio?
Could you give us just a quick, high-level overview of it, Christina?
Okay,
So
we are
just-
at,
Any changes?
there have not been any changes. It's approximately 799 million. We're completely diverse in our investments by the banks and by investments, so everything's pretty much status quo.
Okay, seeing no speakers on that item, we'll move to item 6C, which is the memorandum for the investment brochure. Frank, you going to be talking about that?
Yes, Larry asked me to come up and talk on that real quick. The treasurer was, back when you did the investment policy, we expanded it to include intergovernmental investment pools, which allows the local governments, like the smaller communities, to get a better investment by joining with us in a joint investment. Since that's been approved, the treasurer has prepared a brochure, and this is just the brochure he's going to be sending to the local units. He wanted everyone to see what he was sending out in case if anybody had questions and came back to you, you would know what's going on. So that's why we presented this to the board at this time for receive and file.
So Frank, can you just give the board an overview as to the reasoning behind this and why the treasurer is doing this?
Yes. Other counties like Oakland County do this. The investment opportunities are better when you have a larger pool of money. We have a large pool of money, so we get the better investment opportunities, but some of the communities in our county do not have that opportunity. By joining in with us on our investments, they get better rates and better investments, better quality investments. And so the treasurer has agreed to, has proposed that he start one of these local investment pools and limit it to communities within the county. And so it'd be an intergovernmental agreement. This wouldn't take effect until a local government agreed to do this and then come back to this. They would pass a resolution saying they want to do it. It's purely voluntary. And then they would come to this board through the intergovernmental agreement process in the charter. The executive would review it, present it to this board, and this board would have to approve it. But we just wanted to let you know that because this has already been preliminarily approved in the investment policy, that we're going to present this to the community so that you would know that this policy is out there. If there's any questions. We've received some feedback from a community, for example, Clinton Township. Paul Gillaham's interested in having Clinton Township invest in this. So this is just the beginning phase. This is the brochure that will be provided to the communities. There's a sample agreement behind it. And again, this will all come back to the board for approval. None of this will happen without the board getting a chance to look at the communities that are coming in. And it's purely voluntary. The communities have to agree to it, and we have to agree to it, so.
Thank you, Frank. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. So if I understand this right, then if any of our villages, towns, or townships take advantage of this, their monies would be pooled in with our money as one big pool versus the other people's money being pooled separately.
Right, not all I think we'd have a separate pool for this.
It would be separate by entity.
So we would have money in it, and the local units would have money. It would be part of our investments. It wouldn't be all of our investments. They're doing it. We're creating, there'd be a pool within our investments.
Okay, so you quoted something like 799 million. So some of that monies would be put in this separate pool.
It would be included in our investment portfolio, but it would be held separately by
Okay.
each entity. So to be able to keep track of which funds belong to.
Yeah, you have to keep track of it, so.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Perna?
Frank, these smaller communities that will invest in this pooled funds, there's no fee for this, correct?
There is a fee, it's 4 basis points. And there's a minimum investment of $100,000.
So they pay a fee to the treasurer's office, minimum is 100 grand, right?
Right, That's $40 on a
So
100.
what the county puts in to match these small, when they pool the money together, the county's putting in the same amount that the smaller communities are doing?
That's getting pulled in with Christina will put it in an investment with county money. The county could have $1 million in the investment and the community only has 100, so it'd be 1.1 million collecting interest on whatever the investment is.
It would be accounted for no different than roads or public works or community mental health are now. So it would be completely, when you see a portfolio, you'd be able to tell which, township or whatnot has which money invested.
Has the response been pretty good with all the smaller communities?
We're expecting about half of the communities participating or somewhere around there, but we're expecting some worth enough to do this. And it's a benefit to the community more than us, but it still helps the benefit to our communities helps us, so.
And then if the small communities need some of that money that's in that pool, is there a penalty for them to pay to get the money out?
If the bank has a penalty, then they would have to, take on that cost, but if not, then there wouldn't be any penalty to them.
The goal is to balance the investments so that there's enough liquidity to take care of that without penalty. And that's by having a larger fund, you have more room for that.
Right. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Counselor. Hi. This reminds me of something like when we purchase with the state, we get a better deal if we buy in tandem because we buy as a group. So this is probably the same thing, getting a better interest rate by incorporating some of these smaller municipalities with us that would get a better rate. My question is, though, if there's a liability involved, one of these smaller communities has a legal problem, and they go after them, and can they tie up this account because that particular municipality is in that account until it's satisfied? Hopefully, you understand my question.
I understand your question, no. First of all, liability is usually covered by insurance and other means when it doesn't affect your investments. And the other thing is when we have, like for example, when I was assistant city attorney for Sterling Heights, most of the city of Sterling Heights has a reserve fund for liability, which covers most of that. That wouldn't be in this investment.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, sir.
Seeing no other speakers, please vote. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. I think we have one more on St. Clair Shores.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item is 7A, Resolution 2023-10476, authorizing the City of St. Clair Shores to collect the 2023 winter tax levy on the 2023 summer tax bill for all parcels with a total tax bill of $100 or less. Need a motion to recommend this to full board.
Motion
Zinner
to
will
recommend the full board.
Zinner support.
Made by Haas, supported by Zinner. Frank, Christina?
I'll just give a quick summary. Several years ago, I remember it, when they moved the taxes to the summer tax bill, I think it was under the Engler administration, the communities complained because they were sending out tax bills that cost more to prepare to send out than they were asking for in return. So they passed an amendment to the statute allowing a community to move up their winter tax to the summer tax if it was going to be under $100. And so St. Clair Shores is asking this, and they ask this every year basically. They need permission from this board to do that. They need the treasurer to recommend it, and the treasurer's recommending it, and now it's before the board. It's not a problem to the county, it doesn't cost us anything, and so it increases the tax bill less than $100 in the summertime. But they don't have to pay the winter.
Okay, seeing no speakers. Oh, Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I would add that that's going to save on postage, time, workers, everything. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Did you get a vote? Did I get
Did
a
it pop
vote?
up?
No, mine is yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item, thank you, Frank, thank you, Christina. Next item is 8A. This is the American Rescue Plan Fund Project items. Item A, which is the presentation of the plan. I need a motion to receive and file.
Support Van Sickle.
Made by Romano, supported by Van Sickle. Vicky, you have the floor. And commissioners, just before we tee this up, so Vicky will be doing the presentation for A, and then the next items B through G, that'll be a separate motion. So this will be high level, and then we'll be discussing each item individually. Thanks, Vicky.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Excited to be here, finally here, right? 2 big days in a row for 2 big plans that are coordinated and connected. So again, glad to be here. Obviously a little nervous, biggest project I think the county's ever undertaken, and we all take this very seriously. I know from all the people involved in this that are here in the audience as well as from your view as well. So a lot of time, dedication, and effort and long-term planning has gone on in these areas. So as Commissioner Sabatini said, we'll give an overview of the projects. A lot of this is somewhat of a review. We didn't want to go too much into the weeds, but we will be thorough. And then we really, as we go through the items, really want to get to your questions. And what do you have for us? What are you thinking? Maybe what don't you understand? So when you look at the beginning of our ARP projects, this will be the general overview. Our 2 project areas have been the same basically since day one. We did have a 3rd project for the Verkulen building, which we pulled off the table and have other plans for later on. But because of the cost really of the central intake and assessment center and how that's changed over the past couple of years, we pulled that project off. But again, these are the 2 project areas that we've had from the beginning and when the first ARP plans were announced. As we've talked about before here at public meetings and other conversations that we've had, there are probably literally thousands of projects we all could come up with collectively to use the ARP funds for, and very worthwhile projects that have a lot of merit. But as happens anytime how the process works, money comes into the administration, the executive's office, just like the budget. We prepare plans for the use of funds, and we come up with those ideas and we present those plans here. So again, that's what we're doing today, is presenting our priority areas to the board, and then we have our discussion with that. In covering, I'm going to move through. So kind of just high level overview of the ARP funds. Don't want to spend a lot of time here. But basically, obviously came out of COVID and really had the focus of the recovery piece of COVID. Initial CARES Act funding that we received were for those emergency needs. And this money was meant to really be transformative within the communities and our different areas. So took effect, planned back in April of 2022. There's 4 overarching program areas, if you will, that projects can fit into. The replacing lost public service revenue. You have your public health and economic impacts, very broad category. That is what our central intake and assessment center falls under and most aligns with. Premium pay for workers, and then last, the water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, which the public works projects fit into. Start date of projects to be eligible, March 3rd from 2021. As we've discussed before, we have to dedicate and basically have our money decided by the end of December of 2024. And then we have to have that funding expended by the end of December of 2026. Our allocation, we've always rounded off 170 million. It's really $169,758,815. Our breakdown of the funds are listed there. Easy one is the Public Works project for 40 million, And then the balance of that, we want to put towards the central intake and assessment center. We've talked before about legal review as it pertains to the ARP funds. I know I'm presenting to the board before. We had our internal review done by staff as well as by Corp Counsel, and we gave the board some project areas throughout the nation that also align with the project that we're doing. But we also went out and had a legal review done by an independent firm, Fusso and Bone. We do have representatives here today, included all of those documents in the packet. And what we requested for them to do was cover their view on the eligibility for both of our project areas on the use of the ARP funds, which they agree would fall within that, in that guidance and the intent of the funding. We had them take a look at contract delivery methods and how we're looking at carrying out those projects and using construction managers and other forms of our bidding process. Federal funding guidance, a lot of the federal funding guidance we're used to with the amount of federal grants that we get within the county. So a lot of that is pretty standard, but we wanted them to review that for us as well, make sure we're aligning with what we currently do and where we're going. So again, that talks about our procurement process, our audit process, how do we track projects, things of that nature. And then there was also the piece on labor and Davis-Bacon. In both of the projects that we're proposing, technically under ARP, you do not have to use Davis-Bacon. We will be using Davis-Bacon and following that. There is funding tied to the public works projects that flow through federal and state that encompass that. And rather than try and split up the projects or anything like that, it just makes it easier to encompass them all under one. So we will be doing that, and we also have the legal review with that. That's kind of the ARP in a nutshell. There's a lot of other areas, again, we could go into and cover, but those are really the highlights and the major points that we talked about. I will now roll into the central intake and assessment center project. As I think everybody knows, and obviously well before my time, talk of a jail's really been going on for probably close to 20 years at one time or another, different iterations. For us, you know, it's most recently come into our area back in 2017. You know, over the course of the years, the various plans have been brought to the board, and they have not been successful. They've been delayed or put off. Funding hasn't been in place. And again, while we initially, as sheriff, started this newer process in 2017 for a variety of reasons, it's come about here to this day. Obviously, too, you know, we talk about it, but yes, costly project. No one denies that. No one denies that from 20 some odd years ago in doing that. The other area that we know is it's obviously not necessarily very popular. It's not a pretty project. It's not necessarily a demographic that some people think we may necessarily need to serve in that capacity, and that money could be better spent elsewhere and for other people and other individuals. However, the county jail is a county responsibility. No one else in the county runs a jail. You have individual communities that may operate their own lockup for individuals that are held there for hours, maybe a couple days. But eventually, if they are remanded into the custody of the sheriff, they end up in our facility. And we have a duty to provide a well-kept facility for our employees and the people that we serve within that facility. The sheriff operates the jail on a daily basis. Obviously, that is his greatest purview. And really what a sheriff does is operate a county jail. And for us from administration, and we look at what we do, and that we have an obligation to make sure that the sheriff has a good functioning facility, just like we do for other departments. Just like other department heads have good facilities and good services, and they want their employees to have a good place to work at, and people that come in to use those services, we have that obligation to provide that to him as well. And that comes from our office on the executive side. We're in charge of all the facilities in the county, and those projects come before us. So that's why we're also playing such a large role in this, because that really falls on our shoulders, and then on your shoulders if you choose to approve the project. When you look at poor functioning facilities, and I can say I lived through that with Comtech, I was blessed to go from a poorly functioning EOC in the county at the time, and now we have Comtech. There is a detriment that you may not always see if we do not have facilities that meet our needs. They have an impact on finances. We'll talk about that a little bit, of maintenance projects that are rolled into our plan for portions of the jail, but we've seen that, the board has seen that over the years. There's very expensive maintenance projects just to try and keep up with what we have. Obviously, there's the take on employees that work there and the type of facility that they have. It's has to do with the persons that are housed within there, the services that they provide. We do not have adequate programming areas for the individuals there, and we'll talk about that, and we have talked about that when it comes down to really looking at mental health and substance abuse. When we went through COVID, just our regular medical facility area in the jail, and trying to protect the employees and the spread of COVID was very tricky in that facility. They did a great job in there, but because we don't have the right setup for medical housing, that made it tougher for the individuals within that facility. And then, as no one likes to hear, but obviously there are lawsuits that have come out of the jail facility over the years, just because of how it is, some of the attributes that it lacks. Again, last jail project was started in 2017, went out to bid. And the bid was awarded in 2018. Since then, though, there's a lot of things that have happened, right, between 2017 and now, standing before you in 2023. Actually, I think it's a good thing that we've had this time to plan and take our time and have a lot of other pieces come together. Because again, when we're looking at this, we're not looking just at a one-stop shop, just a quick fix. We are looking at a systemic change in the system and many systems. Obviously, we're also talking about the physical changes, whether it's the Central Intake and Assessment Center. We've talked about the local residential treatment center, or crisis stabilization unit, as it pertains to community mental health and substance use, and more of that'll come out tomorrow as well. But it's the physical plus then the programmatic that will improve the system that we have. And all of those are interrelated. So with the press conference that was held last week, the initiatives we've been talking about, you've kind of seen our strategy come out. So it is a safe and healthy Macomb that we are putting all of these projects under, and the Central Intake and Assessment Center is a core piece of that project and that strategy on the criminal justice side. That strategy has a public and private component. We have a role on that for programs that we provide, whether it is for sheriff's office, law enforcement. We have our community mental health programs that have the community side. There are a number of departments that touch this area. And then there is the community, the people that we serve. And we know that it's lacking within the community, and that places have shut down. Hospitals are overrun with individuals coming to the hospitals that have mental health and substance use issues. Our law enforcement and first responders really have two choices. They bring individuals to the jail, or they bring them to a hospital. And right now the hospitals are at capacity. Some of those are shutting down programming. So again, we're trying to look at this holistically and really shore up our gaps and weaknesses in the system, whether it comes in through the criminal justice side or on the community side. We'll talk a little more about the central intake and assessment center. Local residential treatment center is a piece of that. Again, we've talked about potentially using the JJC for that facility that would be county-owned and operated, mainly with community mental health as the lead. Individuals could come into that center, though, from the community. They wouldn't necessarily have to come in there from the criminal justice system. It has a component of a crisis stabilization unit. Again, someone can walk in off the street, they can be brought in there by someone else, and they could be looked at initially, and where they're not necessarily having to enter the criminal justice system just because there's no place else to take them. The residential treatment facility could be short-term or long-term plans that we have for that. And then we also have plans, another physical component is an engagement center that community mental health is looking at. And again, drop-in center for maybe 24 hours. Someone needs to come in, maybe they need a shower, maybe they need to talk to someone, they need food, they need a little bit of immediate resources, and they're able to self-recognize that, hey, I need a little bit of help right now. So that is another component of our system. And then obviously all the programming that goes into that. But that is when you hear us talk about our Safe and Healthy Macomb initiative, those are all the pieces that fall under that. So with the central intake and assessment center, again, that's a very large piece. Many of these components, yes, you could initiate one without the other, but you're not going to make the systemic change that we're looking for and really try to get people out of the cycle of coming into contact with law enforcement and ending up within the jail. We want to make sure that they get the help that they need, and if they don't need to be within the jail facility, that we have other programs and places that can support them adequately. But also, if they do need to remain in the jail, that we are supporting them as our responsibility, and that we're taking care of their physical needs, their mental health needs, and if they have any substance abuse issues. So again, getting back to just a little history, September 2017 was when the bid was first let out to look at a new facility. It went out for options for a central intake with a renovation, and then also possibility of a completely new center. In March of 2018, Partners in Architect was awarded the contract for that project. March of 2019, they came back with different options. I believe there were 5 different options for that task force to take a look at and choose from. Should not have said purchase up there, but it should have been pursue. Sorry about that, but pursue a completely new facility was the option that was chosen. So with looking at that, we entered into an amendment with Partners in Architecture to do a deeper dive into what an entirely brand new facility would look like. Those plans were initially completed, and there was a price tag of about $371 million at that time for a new facility that was in the design. Internally and externally, in meeting with the commissioners, we thought that was a bit of a high price tag. So we asked Partners in Architecture to once again do a little scaled back version. Again, you started to see the criminal justice reform starting to come into play, different concepts for that. And let's see if we can get that price tag down and still accomplish what we need to do. We did have revised plans for commissioners that were here. We worked a lot with the board at that time on our plans at the end of 2019, early 2020. We got the price tag down closer. We had a couple different models, one at, I believe, $295 million, the other one at $303 million at that time. And we had agreed with the board that we were going to seek a millage. At that time, we were working on language with the board and trying to work through that. Our plan was to come back to the board of the spring in 2020 to solidify the ballot language and put it on the ballot for later that year, and then COVID hit. So we pulled those plans from the table for obvious reasons. We then started conversations again once COVID started to die down. So we looked at another proposal, again, scaling back even more and trying to focus just on that central intake and assessment centerpiece with some other modifications that we felt would be needed and would be good and reasonable. So we asked PIA to draw up some new schematic designs for that. Summer of 2022, as part of the planning process, is when we took a look at adding a 4th floor of general population to that facility. So that is included today. And then also with all the capital projects going on that are needed in other parts of the jail that will remain and currently are in need of repair or maintenance. Still with the market the way it is, we thought it'd be a good idea to put those projects within this project and bid. It'll maximize the dollars, maximize having same contractors on that site and doing all of the same work rather than trying to piecemeal it. And then there is also an electrical study that needs to be completed within the jail. And then brings us up to where we are today. I know we discussed a lot during the budget process and in other meetings with the board. We've all been waiting for that, so you have our presentation today. And then as it pertains to the Central Intake and Assessment Center project, there are 4 asks that we have for approval as part of kicking off this project. Obviously is the budget amendment for the money that we need for the entire project, which is the roughly 228, almost $229 million. We then are in need of a project manager or owner's representative, so there's a contract for that on the agenda. There's a contract for Partners in Architecture to now go into the detailed design, and then a contract for Metro Technology to provide us with IT consulting services. So the scope of the project for the intake center, there are pieces to be demolished, renovated, and then obviously new construction. If you're picturing the jail, and I know many of you were able to take a tour of the jail recently and see some of the spaces that we're talking about. This is the west entrance of the jail. So you're looking at further back off of Elizabeth Road and where it's going. The admin portion of the sheriff's office will remain, as will the tower will remain. There's your numbers for demo, 78,000, gonna renovate about 28,000 square feet, and then you almost have 177,000 of the new construction. We have broken the project down, obviously how it fell into phases, but that also parlays into our funding sources that we have to keep separate as well. So the central intake, approximately 127,000 square feet, and then our 3rd floor for the general housing population is 50,000 square feet. Again, when you look at these areas, we're talking about the central intake, that's booking, that's assessment, that's where the people come in or brought in from law enforcement to the jail. We obviously have offices in here. Community corrections right now is in that part of the jail. They're critical to the intake and assessment center. Community mental health will have space within this facility. We have a small courtroom that was asked for and was thought by a good idea by the courts, prosecutor's office, public defender's office. There's space for them to do that. Again, while they do a lot of video arraignments still that have sped that process up, they still thought there was a need to potentially have space there to have a physical presence. And again, if they can get people moving in and out of the jail all that much quicker, better for everyone. That they are moved through there. There'll be room for training, office, programming I've talked about. Obviously, all the medical, this will house the main medical facility for all prisoners within the jail, then there are the mental health and the detox beds within there. And then that extra floor for general population housing that was requested for growth. But then also because of the concerns that there are with the tower and maintaining the tower, that's also a place where we could shut down some of the floors in the tower and just have those go dormant and not service them if the need be. Here's just a breakdown further on sizing of the various areas. Just wanted to break it down for you and what we're talking about. Not necessarily going to spend a lot of time in that right now. Here are the bed counts. I know we've talked about a lot of those in the past, but this is just an idea of to give you the new bed space. Obviously, you have to separate the male and the female, and the beds that we're looking at providing in all the different areas. So you're looking within the central intake area, 210 beds. We gave you what is existing in the remaining part of the jail is 900 beds, and then that additional floor will account for approximately 108 inmates, which at the end of the day would put us just over 1,200, ability to house 1,200 at the jail. Here's the funding. Just wanted to break the funding down for you at a high level, somewhat by area. Again, if you want to know just what the central intake center is costing, roughly 142 million of the price tag. The third floor is 61 million. The infrastructure projects, again, those have been on the capital project list. You've seen those before. Those all total 25 million. They are part of the project, and then the electrical study is estimated at 300,000. Then we just broke this down by the contracts and that we're going to be seeking to award as they come up. But obviously we have professional services at close to 18 million. Then you have your site costs, permits. We have plans that we have to get approved. There's owner costs that we have. Construction, the bulk of the project is 155 million is our estimate. For all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that we've accounted for in this project, you're looking at just under 4 million. We have our technology component for the entire space within the facility. And then we have contingencies and escalation built in to the project for that as well. Obviously, what we're looking at with all those percentages are norm and within the time, and we have more on that later in other items that we can talk about if you need to. But we feel that we have enough, being very conservative, we have money built into the project for when this hopefully comes to fruition. No, this slide is very hard to read. Sorry, was not able to make it any better for you at this time, but this is just the project schedule. Obviously a very long-term project as we know. If we kick this off, gets approved in June, and we kick off shortly after that, you're really looking at another 12 to 14 months for the detailed design. And that really, the drawings that we have now, we have more than what you see in the packet. Again, we tried to minimize that because we know that could be a lot to look at as well, but we can provide that to you. But takes a lot of time to plan, get to the detailed designs, get all the specs set and ready with all the requirements that we will have for the space. So really you're looking at, all in all, worst case scenario, we're projecting that till 2028 for the project to be complete. But we do have phases built in. We're very aware of when the ARP money expires and that needs to be spent. And that is provided for within the project space. And obviously that is the funding that we would start to use first as well and get that money out the window. out the door. Again, here's just some drawings for you. So this is the lower level. It's partially underground at the facility. Again, this is where people would initially be brought into. So you have some different areas for processing. There is some housing space for them while they are in that area. There's property rooms, obviously, for the jail itself, but also people coming into the facility. You have your first floor, which is your entrance to the facility. So again, it's going to be your lobby area, the courthouse. You start to see that's where we pull in some of the medical and detox areas into the facility. Within that floor, then you go to the second floor is essentially all the mental health beds broken down within there. And then the last floor is the general population housing that we're looking at providing. And then we just did a few outside pictures to get an idea of what we're looking at. Blends very well within the part of the jail and the tower that will remain. And then that's just kind of an overview site plan of how it'll fit in with the rest of the facility there. Obviously on your right in the white area is the tower space, admin of the sheriff's office now that's remaining. And then the male mental health, female medical housing, that is all the new section of the building in the area that's going to be renovated. And before we move on to Candace's presentation, I know the sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioners, or I should say good afternoon, Commissioners. So I've been in front of you, some of you, over the last few years, referenced the jail, but for the new Commissioners, this has been an issue that's been dated back to 2005. So in 2016, that's when I became involved, and my staff has worked hard for the last 7 years coming up with a solution to the problems at the Macomb County Jail. And I know anytime we talk about the Macomb County Jail, it all comes down to money. I totally understand that. But with this project and with the funding and what's being brought in front of you, you have a one-time opportunity to make the Macomb County Jail a better place, not only for the people that are remanded to the county jail, but also for the men and women that work at the sheriff's office. My team has worked hard for the past 7 years to come up with a solution, and this is an excellent solution. I say it's a brilliant solution. We need a new jail. We need a whole new building, and I know that's not going to happen, but this is the solution that can take us into the future in dealing with inmates at the Macomb County Jail. As you heard, the sheriff's office responsibility, care and custody of prisoners remanded. That's my job, that's my staff's job. The county is responsible to provide the sheriff and sheriff's office with a functioning facility to manage those inmates. So, and as I look, I just asked this question: how many of you have toured the Macomb County Jail inside the facility to see exactly what goes on and how it operates? If you have, raise your hand. Okay, if you haven't, we're open 24/7, 365 days a year. The lights are always on. Please come in, see what goes on in there, see the working environment, see how we can do things better. So, in closing, I'm just going to say I asked for your support in June. This is a no-brainer. This is needed, and I look forward to moving this project forward. So thank you for your time.
Chair, just a request, before Candace comes up, can we do the Q&A for the first part of the project?
I think it's a great idea. I was actually going to suggest that myself. Commissioner Miller, why don't we just, and these are high-level questions because we obviously we've broken this agenda into specific items. So we're going to keep this short and sweet to just high level, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty with each one of those items. So Commissioner Song, I see your name here as the first speaker.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Sheriff Wickersham, for your testimonial. I completely understand that the jail is in dire need of renovating, repurposing, updating, purchasing a new facility. I really appreciate both of you coming here today and sharing with us some of the background about this need. But when I go back to the reason why we received these funds, the ARPA funds, they're really intended to address issues related to the pandemic. And what I'm hearing from both of you is that this was an issue from 2005, this was an issue from 2017, and it's always been a funding issue. I understand that. I'm on your side when it comes to making systemic changes and upgrading the jail, because that is a county responsibility. But I just have a very hard time connecting this one-time funding with this project that has been an issue prior to COVID. And I'm not really sure how this really prevents people from getting detained and going to jail, because this addresses an issue of once they're already there. So I'm just wondering, like with these ARPA funds, how can this address the greater community in a way that prevents people from even going into this intake jail or intake center? And I would really like to know if you know what the percentage of the mental health and substance abuse community is in the jail. Is it a high population? Because worst case scenario, we build this and they don't come. But if you can make a case that 90% of the people who are in the jail are there because of mental and substance abuse disorders, then maybe that would make more sense.
Yeah, no, it's probably about 30%, 35% with mental health and substance use disorders, detoxification that come through the facility.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Lucido?
Yes, I just had one quick question. So it sounds to me like 25 million was going to be put into the existing tower out of this money, and then the rest is going to be to build the new building, correct? Is 25 million, I mean, are we sure that 25 million is an adequate number for the upgrades that are is needed in that tower, I guess? Because like, this is new to me, because
Sure, I'll answer it this way.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you that 25 million is adequate for what is needed today.
Okay.
It's not adequate for what may break or be planned for the future. Ben, do you wanna add to that, or is that an adequate statement?
I guess my biggest concern is that like we're putting 25 million in, and then next year gonna be like, well, once we start getting the nitty gritty of this, now we need 10 more million. Like that's where my concern's coming in.
Sure, so you haven't been here, but the experts in 2016, when we've done the studies, says that whole facility should have been demolished. We
Okay.
continue to throw millions and millions of dollars into the tower to keep it operational. So this is a fix for now, but we can guarantee you there'll be additional funds to keep that thing going. But that's the only thing we have to work with. So you're gonna have to keep the tower open. We're gonna have to put money into it to keep it operational.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers the question.
I'm
but-
done. Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Kraft? Or Ben, did you want to add something?
No, I think Vic covered it. The 25 million that we have baked into this project is kind of twofold. As Vicky mentioned, it allows us to get bigger companies, bigger contractors, better bidders, potentially to do that work. But that 25 million is for what we see in the next 5 years, and that's coming out of our capital plan. And as my great predecessor would say, is you probably will never see a capital plan coming from us that does not include work at the jail. It's just the nature of the beast, so.
Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions, but I'm going to try to pace them out as we go along here. So I'll start with this one. Vicky, the executive's office has continuously talked about this being as transformative, which the project you're presenting to us is to the physical landscape of the county. There's going to be a new building, there's going to be a new facility. But in my mind, and being from the mental health side of things, the transformative part is what happens inside that building. And it's to the inmates that are going in there, going through this process. Where do we find these people? Where do we find the staff for the sheriff's office, for CMH that's going to be there, for the medical staff? You know, that's not really a piece that you've touched on. I know we're focused on the building facility part, but I'm focused on if and when this gets finished, who do we put in there? Because right now we're having difficulties finding employees in the mental health field, whether it be through the county or whether it be through providers. So I love the idea. We've talked about this numerous times. I love the concept. It's fantastic, but it's the nuts and bolts of once these folks go through this central intake, then what happens? Where's the person that's there next to take their hand and pull them in the right direction?
Sure, and I think, we all understand that that's a struggle everywhere, in many professions and disciplines, and it's something we've seen in the county and that we're continuing to see, notably in the sheriff's office, even with hiring of deputies and corrections officers. But what I can't say is I hope the trend will continue of what we've done here as an organization and with the board, is we've made ourselves very attractive to people, and I think we will continue to do that. I know the same discussions with community mental health and Dave Pankatai on that side, and I think a lot of times too, when the pieces, and yes, these are large pieces and will take time, start to come together, I think you're going to have people that want to work here, they want to be part of the system, and they want to be part of the change. And that we'll just have to keep working on that with our partners that we have in what we do with the businesses, with the college, and all of that, and ourselves to pull that together and make it an attractive place to work. There's also, the models when we get into, the programming side, some of that is provided by outside, providers. So hopefully too, when others see that we're building that facility, they'll be encouraged to want to bid on projects and RFPs or RFQs that are out there, a couple of which I know have already been out, through community mental health.
Right. So do you have any sort of idea as to the increase in staff levels that this is going to take for this ship to run efficiently? Is there like I talked to Mark Delden yesterday, you have a guesstimate, ballpark, any sort of guess for?
Yeah, I think that's part of the next phase, correct, Sheriff, for your piece of it?
Sheriff, how many more people do you need?
Are we talking about the mental health side and services
Any
provided?
of it. Everybody that's covered in this
I'd
new
love
plan.
everybody to come on in and help us out. But from an operational standpoint on correction staffing, if you look at the project and you look at what we're going to demolish, currently some of those portions are open and are staffed. So if we demolish them from a day shift standpoint, we got 16 officers we're going to redeploy into this new facility, 14 on AFs and 14 on mids. Again, I could not, if that question comes up, is it going to take additional staffing? I cannot answer today to this board if additional staffing will be needed. We won't know that till they start doing the schematic design and we look at the workflow, we look at the duty stations and what it's going to take to staff it. But I'm pretty confident that it's going to be right there, especially with the additional corrections I received in the budget this year. Once we get them hired, if there is an increase, it's going to be minimal. There may even be a decrease, but today I cannot give you that. We probably won't have that answer for another year or so.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry if I can just on somewhat of the programming side, some of that you'll start to see tomorrow in the presentation that we make on the use again of another piece, but most closely tied to programming in the opioid fund. So Barb Caskey has plans for use of that funding to start hiring some personnel. There's some consultants built in for CMH. So some of those pieces you'll start to see too.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Sheriff. I'd like to make a statement, then I have some questions, if I may. The intake that we don't have now, that hopefully we will have in the future, and everybody hears it every single day. We see it on TV. It's mental health problems. This lady had a mental health problem. This group had a mental health problem. Even if we lock them up, and it happens, we lock them up, they serve their time, and they're gone. Hopefully, with this intake, we can figure out what's wrong with them, treat them, and then release them, and hopefully they don't come back. Right now, we have no chance of that. They're in, they serve their time, and they're gone again, committing the same thing all over again. So am I in favor of the intake? Absolutely, 100%. But I have some dollar questions that maybe you can possibly help me out. Is the project people here that are putting this together? What I'm trying to figure out is, we're putting in 118 beds in the mental health facility. Does that sound right to you? Okay, I'm trying to get, that's not 118 beds I think we put in intake. How much they figure that out per bed? What is it costing us per bed to put those beds in? I mean, there's gotta be a cost per bed, right? 50,000, 20,000? Where's the guy at that's gonna give me that answer? Because I got some more questions for him.
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Romano, if we don't have these answers today, we will get you these answers.
Okay,
just
that's
so you.
fair.
Hi, Mike Malone with Partners in Architecture.
Hi, Mike.
And we didn't figure the cost estimate based on just the bed count. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of demolition, reconfiguring, the overall construction, but, the beds are a small piece, not a small piece, but they occupy space within the building, and I don't have the square footages in front of me.
So my question would be, we're putting in these beds, there's an allocated space for these particular beds.
Correct.
What's it cost to put in these? That's what I'd like to know. What is it costing to put in these beds out of the amount of money that we're spending? The other question
I'd have
is,
to get that for you.
you're doing the third and fourth floor, and we're spending $67 million. How much square footage is involved here?
There's a total of 177,000 square feet.
Did you break it down per square foot with the other question that I asked for you, if you would?
Yeah, we can do that for you.
And the other thing I have is this 25 million, or 24, I'll say 25 million in contingencies. Everybody remember the boat livery? You remember the contingencies we have? We started off with, and I'll use a figure of, sorry, Sheriff, I'm gonna use a figure of 10,000, that went to 12,000, that went to 16,000. So $25 million in contingencies based on the total project. That sounds like a lot of money for an if come. Can you guys get it down any closer than that kind of dollars?
It's a percentage of the overall construction cost, but there's multiple contingencies, I think, rolled into that, right? Correct. Yeah.
And I think with the contingencies too, what we're trying to do is so that we don't have to necessarily come back and ask for more money. We've built it into the project. Those contingencies do not automatically go to the contractor. They're held by us as the county, so we've built them into the budget. Doesn't mean we won't come back when we have to, meeting the board's thresholds. I don't mean it that way, but we've built the budget and structured it that way. So yes, it's a higher contingency amount. There's different percentages depending on what piece of the project you're looking at or service provided. But we've somewhat, done that on purpose with the market that is out there. But again, much of those contingencies are held by us. And it's not just something the contractor can go and spend.
So we don't spend all of that contingency. It cannot go back into the general fund. Am I correct? Because this is ARP money. It has to be used specifically for something else. Is that correct?
That'll be,
Use $20 million of the 25 million. You can't come back and say, well, we didn't use it all. We'll put 5 million back into I'm sure we'll find some way to spend the other $5 million within the project.
that's part of the tracking piece and the project management piece that makes some of this complicated and why we need to have a consultant come in and help us with that. Yes, 25 million, that'll be what's paid out of this pot, what is paid out of that pot, and where it comes back in. And, all the way through this project, again, long-term project with the contingencies. I'm gonna knock on wood, but we had a bid come in yesterday for a much smaller project. It came in under our budget estimate. If you talk to some of the experts here, some of the prices are coming down. So with the long-term project too, we'll be managing that budget, and we'll see how the pricing comes in. And hopefully there's still a trend, and the funding won't be utilized, and what comes back to the county, or if we see it's ARP funds, you know, we'll take a look at a different, use of the funding and where we're at with that.
But hopefully we can use it all. The other thing I just want to make is, I think we all, at least I think we bypassed all of this. One of the most important parts of this intake and the jail renovations and so forth, is the safety of the employees. Now, most of us took that jail tour. I certainly appreciated the fact that I had 3 people about 6'4" and about 260 pounds walk with us, because I certainly didn't want to walk. And we were in the general area, so if anybody's aware of that, we were in the general prison area. So there's a safety factor involved. I think we tried to help somewhat with the new doors and so forth, but there's employees too, and we looked at it all. We went into those spaces. I certainly wouldn't want to be in there, because I don't think there'd be a safety feature enough for me to be in there, but that's one of the things we overlooked. And I think this is going to hopefully address some of that system so that we can have your employees feel a little more safe, for both male and female, when they come into work. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Nard?
Commissioner Romano hit on the financial part, so I don't have to talk about that. But what I did want to talk about, I did visit that jail. It took me 2 weeks to gather myself back. I literally was sick after being in there, and not so much because of the condition, but because of the way the building is designed. I mean, it's like the people that work there are spending time in jail. I mean, they're spending their time there, and that's probably why it's hard to get people to work there, because I wouldn't want to work there. I don't care. You couldn't offer me enough money to stay in there like that. So, I mean, you know, building something that would be more, my concern is more having the employees be safe. I didn't feel safe, but I was safe because of the people that walked with us. And the sheriff made a joke, and I kind of laughed at it, but then I was thinking about it as I walked through. He said, okay, so now y'all here, you know, you staying here. I couldn't imagine myself going to jail. And I have 19 grandsons, and I tell them, you know, I told them how that looked, how that was, and they also know if they do anything, Granny ain't putting up her house to get you out. So, you know, you hear what I'm saying, because you guys are gonna make this better, hopefully for the employees, okay, that are working there, and safe for them. That's going to be my concern with that. And the financial part, when that comes forth, I'll ask more questions about that, because I do have some questions. But I just wanted everybody to know, whoever went to that jail, that's not a place that somebody wants to go. And when they get there, if they think that's where they want to go, they probably quickly find out that's not where they want to be, because the ceilings are low, and I'm 5'3", and it was still claustrophobic for me. I think I kept mentioning that. And it took me 2 weeks actually to recover from that. I was really sick. I had to see the doctor a couple of times because of that. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Vicki, and your whole team for making the presentation today. The attorney that you have there, could I ask him a couple questions?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Macomb County. What is your firm's background in terms of managing these type of projects and advising clients on this new federal windfall that we've become, I guess? Because there's been talk in the media that this money could be rescinded. So what's your background, your firm? What's your background on these? What's your qualifications to guide us through this process? I know that the executives team's reviewed it, but I haven't heard what the background is, and I'd like to hear a little bit about it.
Absolutely, no problem. Our firm has done a lot of work with Plant Moran Cressa in a variety of different communities at this point to assist with the federal funding requirements with ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, and the state and local fiscal recovery funds project specifically.
What any other communities we might note in the state that you're currently working with?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been general counsel for the city of Westland for probably 15 years, but that includes obviously doing their ARPA project work and things of that nature, as well as currently working with Redford Township and have worked with Van Buren Township as well.
Okay. And you have a Washington presence as well, I assume?
No, we don't have a Washington presence.
Okay. Any concerns about rescission of any portions of this project? I mean, we're going off down the road, and here one of our earlier commissioners concerned that maybe this money is not, eligible or wasn't in keeping with the spirit of that. Is there any concerns that you have about this project not being in the right the right silo, if you will, of spending?
I think I understand the question, and what we did was we took a look at a variety of different eligible use categories for ARPA spending, and specifically what the county was looking to do with the money in this specific situation. And what we found through the various Treasury guidance documents is that behavioral health facilities are specifically not only allowed for, but also presumed eligible under the various SLFRF guidance documents.
The reason I ask is because back in the day, before my time on the board, when the county built the original tower, there was issues regarding some of the bonding that was issued, and there were some legal snafus that, cost us some money to get out of and all the rest. And so I just want to make sure that we're on solid ground there, and I'll take your word that it is. And the next thing, I'm done with. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown, and thank you to the commission for having me out.
Vicki, a question on contingency. The contingencies, what about 10% is what you're going on, 10% cost for the total project? Is that, I think that was what we used when we built this building.
Yeah, it's about 10 to 12%, I think, yeah. And they vary in different categories, but yes.
Given the cost of materials and the supply chain that we've experienced, what's your comfort level that that's going to be adequate? I mean, it seems to me, in good times when we built this building, I mean, we kept it, I think we were like 2% under, just slightly under when we built the building based on the budgets we had originally. This is a different environment with supply chains and everything else being out of whack. Can you speak a little bit about that and your comfort level of the contingency built in?
Certainly, Commissioner Brown. Thank you. Andy Fountain with Plant Moran Cressa. We also, in addition to the contingencies listed within the budget offered today, there's a line item for escalation. That specific line item is intended to address variations in the market as we proceed with procurement related to this program, specifically related to construction. So
What was
while
that
we do,
number?
I'm sorry?
What was that number?
Vicki, can you toggle me back? I believe it was around $9 million. Don't quote me
About
on that.
34 million total.
9.3 million.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other speakers specifically to this part of the presentation, high level, Commissioner Miller, you're the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, all the commissioners. I bring my team up here. We're all about team at the Public Works Office. And, just to follow on, just for a quick second, all of the projects that I'm going to present on today are absolutely applicable under the ARPA funds. Not only your attorneys that have authorized that, but most of these projects are also, we're commingling some of the state funds with them that have already been authorized for ARPA funds. So our projects check the box perfectly for these funds. So I want to make sure everybody does understand that as well. And I think that's a great question of these. So I'm here to talk about the $40 million that Vicki mentioned to you that has been sort of in the hopper here since the county received the ARPA funds and looking at them. And I hate to overuse and be redundant on saying transformational, but these projects really are transformational, really, because they're not just transformational, they're generational, I guess, because in my mind, they address what is very critical for Macomb County and for our residents, the desire of our residents to have a clean Lake St. Clair, to have water quality, and certainly all of that ties into the blue economy and economic prosperity, I think, for our county as well. So, and I think that all of the work that we've done together, and I use that term collectively to all the Board of Commissioners, because I've been before you on many occasions for our budgets, for various things, and this board has been extremely supportive of what we're doing, whether I've asked you for 50-50 drain match or what have you, all these different kinds of programs. So I hear this all the time from citizens about what is happening in our department, and that they're generally appreciative in a very big way of the kinds of transformational things that we're doing with our infrastructure. And I think that's an important thing to note. But just as important, it's not just our citizens, it's other elected officials, actually at every single level of government, who are cognizant of what is happening with our department and all the various kinds of things that we've been doing there. And it's evidenced by cash, okay? They're not just giving you lip service. Because both of our U.S. senators, both Senator Stabenow and Senator Peters, have assisted our department so far to the tune of about $8 million of federal earmarks. That means they see something happening, right? I mean, they got a lot of requests, just like you do, right? They have a lot of places they could put that money. Our state legislature has bucked up. They actually approved an earmark for our department for a number of projects for $72 million. Both Democrats and Republicans, that thing went through. And I think that's an important thing. And let me just mention as well, just last week, Governor Whitmer was here in Macomb County talking about a number of different things, one of which was infrastructure. And this is a quote that was in the Macomb Daily just, I don't know, 6 days ago, or shortly ago. She said, "We have a lot of infrastructure work that we have left to do when it comes to water," said Whitmer. "Candace Miller's doing great work, and I think it's the state's job to make sure we are deploying resources to keep the water clean and rebuild that infrastructure. This is who we are. This is what makes us unique, and we can't live without water, so it's really important to protect our lakes." Well, she mentioned my name, but I'm the figurehead of this department, okay? It's all of us together. I'm here with my team. I'm a big believer in team. I raced sailboats for years, okay? It's not just a skipper. It's the team. It's the team. I think it's very, very important. And the team, I think we have the political will to invest in our infrastructure. We have demonstrated that over and over. We do believe in clean water. We want to do the right thing for future generations. And I would just mention, and I'm going to go through these projects here quickly. You've been sitting here for a while. I'll go through my part of it here. But, you know, I was just reading an article about the challenges that Michigan has, that we now are having more deaths than births, right? And more people are moving out of the state than are moving into this state. And we all want our children and our grandchildren to stick around, right? We want them to stay here in Macomb County, hopefully. And when they're making these decisions, a lot of it will be economics, but it's also quality of life and the environment. That is a part of a decision-making for a young person, like a Kyle here that wants to hang around, right? He's very involved in St. Clair Shores and their environmental committee and everything else. These young people are interested in these things, and they're going to be looking at us. So I'm excited to tell you about the projects that we're doing here. I've got Brian Baker as my chief deputy. You all know him. He's been here many times. And Vince Astorino is my operations and flow manager. And he can fill in some of the details here. But again, let me just sort of go through these here. We have four, and we're looking for this $40 million. And first of all, you can see, if you look at the bottom line, actually, we have over $180 million worth of projects that are going on in our department right now. So we are very busy. And those of you that attend the drain board meetings, which is about half the room here, you see it all. You see what's going on in our department. So the first one is what we call the Chapaton in-system storage. It's a total project cost of $12.4 million. Our plan is to use, of these monies we're asking you for today, $8.8 million. Then we have an electrical upgrade at our Chapaton, which is a $22 million project, which our plan is to use $9.5 million of the monies we're asking for today for that. The Jefferson Interceptor Relief Sewer, which is a $25 million project, and it might be a little bit higher, but we're looking to our plan is to use $20 million of the ARPA funds here today, and we won't be back for any additional funds for this either. We're looking for, again, commingling some different things. We think we have a chance of getting some additional funds for that through the state legislature. We're working that pretty hard right now. And also our Bon Hur pump station, where we need to rehabilitate a 50-year-old station there. It's $9.5 million, but we're looking for $1.7 million. So that's our total of our plan of these funds that we're asking for today and how we would do that. And why do we need them? Who's on the video? There we are. Okay, why do we need them? We're trying to reduce our combined sewer overflows. And no secret, in the older parts of our county, just like it happens all over the place, back in the day, you have inadequate underground infrastructure, and in a heavy rain event, the sanitary sewer is combined with the storm sewer. What we try to do at our retention basins, of which we have 2 that we operate in our department, really all you're doing is shocking it with chlorine, okay, or bleach, and then you're discharging it out into the lake. So it's not a complete treatment like a wastewater plant would be. It's one thing, not 3 that a normal wastewater goes through. And it has been going on for literally generations. Generations. My God, this is crazy. We can't keep doing this to the lake. It's not good. So anyway, this is a video that Vince has here that's showing you. Vince, why don't you tell them what they're looking at? How about that?
So what you're looking at here is inflatable bladders that we're gonna install within the sewer. Actually, let me restart it. So inflatable bladders within the sewer. What we found when we went through our analysis was we have a 12-foot diameter pipe that runs through St. Clair Shores and East Point. During smaller wet weather events, that pipe's not being fully utilized at the moment. So some events that we've had in the past, we've had only 3 feet of water in that pipe out of 12 feet. So what we're gonna do is we're actually going to install a device that we can fully inflate in that pipe and store water upstream from it. And that's gonna give us about 3.5 million gallons of storage within that tunnel, just for that one specific location. The video that you have it's an older video because we originally had 2 locations picked out. We were able to eliminate one of the bladders and save about $7 million to the district just by doing that. We made some operational changes and that got us 8.59 million gallons of storage. So we are already doing something there. But that's just a quick high level of what those bladders are gonna do.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I think we had a shot. What's the next one? Can you go to the next one? This is an overview. This project has already started. We've begun this project. So we do intend to spend the ARPA monies quickly with this. And I know some of the commissioners have been down to see this particular site that you're looking at here, and this is by Beaconsfield. It's on Beaconsfield. We've got Beaconsfield closed right now between 8 Mile and Oak. 9 and 8, between 8 and 9 Mile Road while we're doing this. But you're looking down at a project that this is what this in-system storage is doing. And our anticipation is that it will reduce our combined sewer overflows substantially at Chapaton. The next project we're looking at is the electrical upgrades, also at Chapaton. Why do we need them? This thing is 55 years old, the electrical down there, okay? 55 years old. Obviously, there's been some upgrades over the years, but nowhere near enough. And so we were planning, there's been a lot of talk here today about projects and how they came in over cost. We were planning on building a new pump station that would have incorporated a lot of this electrical. And that thing started off at about $30 million, and when it finally came in, it was at $64 million with all kinds of escalators. So we dropped that project and subsequently have said we really need to upgrade the electrical and have generators there so you have electrical redundancy. Because guess what happens in a storm? The electric goes out, right? And we certainly don't want that to happen. I know you've had several fires there as well, right, already? Is there anything I'm missing with this? No. Okay, all right, trying to roll through here. And then half of the money that we're asking you for, we intend to spend for the Jefferson Interceptor Relief Sewer. This is a sewer that runs from 9 Mile to about 10.5 Mile, from in between our 2 retention basins, which is Chapaton and the Martin Retention. And Martin actually handles all of Roseville and a portion of St. Clair Shores as well. And again, it discharges out into the lake on a very regular basis when we have a heavy rain event or snow melt or what have you. And I'm going to show you, we're going to partner with the SEMSD on this. We've worked with it very closely. And Kip Walby is in the audience today as well, who's going to be our partner here. But this you can see where the, okay, yeah, just watch this video, all right? Because you are going to see what happens in the lake when we discharge combined sewer overflows. This video was taken, not this winter, but the previous winter, because there's ice cover, right? This is at the end of Rio Vista. Every time it rains and we're discharging, this is what you're looking coming out of this pipe. in Lake St. Clair. It looks like chocolate pudding, okay? It's gross. And I don't know how else to explain it, but this is very bad, and we just can't keep doing this. And I know we all want to talk about Oakland County or some of the other areas and what they're doing. We got to clean up our own backyard first. Very hard to have be righteously indignant when we have our own issues here. And again, I think this is something that is critically important, and we are very excited about the ability with this Jefferson pipe. It's not going to solve the problem, but it can probably do 50 or 60% reduction, which would be enormous. And we're doing all these, I have a bunch of other projects that I could talk about if you had more time, but I'm not going to talk about them since I'm not asking you for the money for that. But we're sort of approaching this whole issue like you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time, a percentage, and that's the way we're working at it. And the last thing that we're intending to spend some of this money on is our Bon Hur station rehabilitation. They have they're 45-year-old screw pumps that are in there. Actually worked pretty darn well over all these years. And we intend to replace the screw pumps that are there with new screw pumps. But that is going to be a big project, quite an expensive project. Again, of the ARPA money we're asking for you today, we would do like 1.7 million is our expectation. So anyway, these are our 4 projects for the 40 million that we are asking for. And we're asking the board's consideration, and we are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. All these things cost money to the sewer districts, and costs are spread over them, and people see rate hikes in their bills. What will be the effect of this $40 million we give this to you for these projects? What will that be the effect on the rates to the people in these districts? Will they actually see a benefit of the $40 million we're giving you to directly reduce the cost off of their bottom line so that they won't see the increase in their bills?
Yes, I mean, they're not going to see a decrease in their bills because these are projects that we are building, but they won't see an increase in their bill because of the projects that we're building if we're getting them funded. And that is true with all of the different funds that we've been utilizing, right? I mean, like the MID, and Commissioner Van Sickle sits on that drainage board, and so he sees it all. We have 2 huge projects going on, sewer rehabilitations right now that it deals with 600,000 people in Macomb County, so it's spread all over the county, right? And we're using a lot of funds for those kinds of projects as well that advantages all of your constituents, so we're not raising the rates.
So the $110 million you've got in the queue is going to be $110 million less that the ratepayers are going to have to pay.
Absolutely right.
Well, that's good news for the taxpayer for a change.
It's good news for the taxpayer, and that's why I say it's a collective thing. Anyone can, people can understand that, right? You can go to your town halls or your Rotary or whatever and talk about these things. They get it. They certainly understand it because they know what their water and sewer bills are, right?
Yeah, the mayor, the Shores here, they're partnering with you as well, so they're putting their money in as well to help keep the costs down for their local citizens as well, and it's hard to argue with the logic of this allocation. It really is.
It's not only the in regards to St. Clair Shores, how they're also. I mean, this thing has to be bored. The pipe will have to. We thought we could do open cut, but we can't because there's too many utilities in that. It's going to have to be bored. And so, you're down at nautical mile. Everybody's been to nautical mile, right? We're really going to be cognizant. How can we make this thing happen in a way that doesn't negatively impact the businesses? But the reason that nautical mile, one of the principal reasons they're doing so great is because they're on the lake, right? So it's a little bit of inconvenience, but long-term could be fantastic. They could do some new streetscaping. I mean, it could be a fantastic thing for the county.
When you get these individual contracts for these projects, you send us a copy of those contracts, even though we don't approve them necessarily. We'd like to see the copy of the contracts.
Absolutely. And we did talk about this a little bit. Brian can address it if I'm not saying it right, but it really is sort of the template that you're looking at is the contracts have to go through the respective drain boards, right? Because it's all drained. So, it'll come to, the various commissioners, right? I know Harold he's, for the Martin, and Sarah Lucido is there for the Chapaton. And so all of these different contracts will go through the drain boards, and of course, we will be happy to provide all the county commissioners the contracts.
And these are sub-recipient agreements because we have to use those agreements for the ARP funding because we can't, because we're passing this money to a third party to do certain work. Is that correct, Brian? Can you speak to that? Because I had questions about it initially. You helped clear that up the other day, but maybe the other commissioners have the same, that would help them understand what we're
Yeah,
doing
so I
with
think
those
Steve
contracts.
Spiegel's using the
It's a little
exact
bit out of spec than we normally use here, so.
Yeah, using the same process as you did for the COVID dollars, when those dollars got passed down to different entities. So this is a sub-recipient template. We'd be having this agreement between the county and 8.5 Mile and the Martin District, as well as Southeast Macomb County Disposal District. So these would all be agreements. The good thing with that, the boards individual drain boards would approve it, and also we would have to then comply with finances regulations. We'd have to submit proof that we spent the money. Downtown Finance would also review it and make sure everything is copacetic.
And of course, we have commissioners that sit on most of those boards anyway, so we do have a voice there through them as well, but a copy of the contracts would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Candace and Vince and Brian. I do sit on the mid-drain board. I see a lot of what's going on, and basically, we haven't been doing our job before Candace, BC. And
Wow, I am really getting old.
my only thought is I wish we had more out of our money to give you, because we do not need more flooded basements in St. Clair Shores, and we do not need any more sinkholes. And the maintenance that's going on now is much needed. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your service on the board. This guy asks some very detailed questions sometimes. And when he shows up, the team is all ready because they know they're going to get the questions.
Hey,
That's
he's our
very
engineer.
good. That's very good.
Commissioner Romano.
Just this statement to piggyback on Commissioner Van Sickle. I don't think any of us would like to go back into our district where basements were flooded and say to our constituents, listen, we could have avoided this if we didn't give Candace her $40 million. So I, for one, and again, let's talking about Lake St. Clair again, I'm an avid fisherman, and honestly, it actually hurts when I hear this stuff about this beach is closed and that beach is closed because of the fecal or whatever's in the water. And again, Candace, I tip my hat to you and your team. You're trying to do what is right, and it's just like building a house, guys. They need the tools. That tools comes in dollar bills, and I'm totally 100% in agreement with what you're doing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, seeing no other questions related to the presentation, let's take a vote for the receive and file, and then we'll move on.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay. I need a motion for items 8B through G to forward them to the June Finance Audit and Budget Committee.
So moved by Nard.
Support Zinner.
Moved by Nard, supported by Kraft. Okay, so we're going to take these individually, and then if there's specific questions related to the actual item themselves, we'll take questions specific to them, as you will have more materials in each one of these agenda items, Commissioners. Vicky, I guess you're going to tee off this one for B in regards to the 40 million.
Sure. This is just the item that would account for the utilization of the $40 million for the public works projects that were just discussed a few minutes ago. So it gets them into the right accounts that we need and provides access to those funds and accounting for those funds through the
So
finance
are items
office.
B and C the same items, theoretically?
B and C is, they're tied together, yes, and that is the resolution for the template for those drainage districts for that funding as well.
Okay, so why don't we start off with B? Any questions, Commissioners, for B? Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, Vicky, Steve, could you come, I have a question for Steve Schmiegel, our finance director. this might have been asked, this is more of a fundamental of the whole project, but since we're talking budgets, maybe I misheard earlier. Did you tell us when do we have the year-end budget adjustments ready? They just finalized recently?
Well, we're going through our annual audit at this point.
So when will
So
those
we-
be ready?
The annual audit is usually complete the last week of June.
Okay.
So the auditors will be here in July or August with their report.
And that will that be the same time we'd have the year-end fund balance, or do we know what that number is right now?
That will all be encapsulated at that point in time. The year-end fund balance, net of things like prepays that really aren't considered spendable, would be right around 106 million.
106.
106, 105,
Thank you.
106.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Vicki.
Vicki, in regards to this, and maybe this is a question for Commissioner Miller, we would be allocating these funds to Public Works, and then they would be going to the drainage districts, and then they would be voted specifically in those districts, and then approved at that level. But we would be applying the 40 million to those districts in general, and then they would be voting separately on each one of these. Is that correct, for clarity?
Correct. They had specific projects amounts for each district, so district name, the amount of the fundings for each district will be tracked through their individual agreement. And yes, pass through the district.
Okay. And then the resolution is for the 40 million for all three of the projects, correct?
Correct, yes, it's approving the template, and then what the breakdown is in the packet, I believe, of how that'll be said.
Pretty straightforward there. Any other questions on item B? Okay, seeing no additional questions on B. C, the resolution related to the actual drainage district subrecipients or agreements, I should say. Any questions, commissioners, on those agreements? And Commissioner Miller had already stated that once those are approved, they would be forwarded to this board as well. Seeing no questions there, we'll move on to D. This is the budget amendment for the Central Intake Jail addition for the 228 million relative to the actual addition in the Central Intake. So Vicki, do you want to talk? Anything else you want to add to this before we open this up for questions?
I don't think so, I think we kind of covered it, so we can just take
Commissioner
questions if
Kraft,
you're
why don't
good.
you go ahead and tee this one up for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question real quick is for the attorney, if he could come back up. He mentioned something when he previously spoke, and I want to touch on it real quick. You had mentioned that behavioral health component is applicable for the ARPA funds. For this project, behavioral health seems like a minor component of it. If you look at the grand scheme of things, if you break down the beds by the numbers that Vicki and the sheriff have provided, it's actually 16% of the beds will be for behavioral health. So I guess my question is there a mark that we have to hit for it to be applicable, or is it just that we're saying we are doing more for behavioral health in general, and that's why this project would be acceptable?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's no specific Treasury guidance on what constitutes, what level of investment constitutes behavioral health over a different level of investment. So I think that's certainly a policy decision that the county would be advised to make, but
Just
no,
want to
there's
make
no
sure we weren't
specific level of
falling short of a
investment.
benchmark or something, and Vicki's waving at me, so she might have more to add to that.
Thank you. With the guidance too, behavioral health applies, congregate care facilities apply, with the jail fits into that category. Medical, just regular medical is part of ARP and congregate facilities, as well as the substance use. You can tie in HVAC systems within congregate care facilities that account for different things as well. So while the behavioral piece is a piece of that and a significant piece, there are other applicable areas within ARP that complete the whole facility.
Okay, and I know with these funds, as opposed to the previous funds, this is a little bit more broad than what we had the last round, I guess.
Correct.
My next question is in terms of budget, which Vicki, this could be you, this could be Steve. I believe we're going after 50 million or so from the state legislature and then 49 or 50 from general fund. Is that the plan, or is that
Correct.
the idea?
Yes.
What if we fall short? What if the state legislature doesn't come through? What if this board doesn't come through with general fund dollars? Is there a change in scope to the plan? I guess, what is the plan if those dollars fall through?
We'd go back and take a look at it, but what we've discussed is coming back and we would seek bonding for the project.
So it's still basically looking at the entire project as a
Correct,
whole?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I was looking at the sheriff's gonna hate me for this one, but the two levels of general pop, I mean, that's 61 million. If you don't get the 50 from the state, maybe we lose a level or two. So I was just wondering if there are other plans to modify the project at all, depending on the funds. So thank you, Vicki.
Yeah, right now we're committed to the project in
Okay.
full.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Vicki, you mentioned HVAC. Does that mean we can update the Martha T. Berry, the funds too?
Martha T. Berry could do that with the funds they have, I believe, if they so choose.
Well, my question is, you had mentioned earlier regarding looking at other projects across the country that were doing a similar project. Do you have a list of those, or can you talk a little bit about some that are similar?
Sure, I provided that to the board before. Let me look through my stuff.
Thank you.
Vicki, while you do that, Commissioner Song, may I ask a question really quick to Steve while she's trying to get you that answer? Because it's regarding the bond cost on the 100 million. Steve, if the board was not to approve this and you did have to go out the bond, what would that cost be?
If we bonded for, say, $50 million, I estimate the total debt service to be about 1.5 times that, including interest. So you have 75 million over 30 years, 2.5 million. Depending on the length of the term of the bonds, if we do 30 years, maybe 2.5. If you lower it to 20 or 25, depending on rates and all that.
So the total then would be 175 million? Is that correct? If
Be another 25 million, yeah. Roughly.
Roughly.
It just works out that way mathematically over time. As I've looked at various bond issues, interest costs are generally around 50% of the principal.
Okay. Vicki, are you,
Yes,
get that number?
Yep, and sorry, I'll get in front of the mic. I will send a copy out again to the board office so you have it. So, yes, when I prepared this previously, I have not had a chance to update it, but I had 7 different projects. First one is Bell County, Texas. Their project was roughly 63 million. There's different treasury categories that they fall into. So there's a public health, prevention in congregate settings, nursing homes, prisons, jails, dense work sites, schools, child care facilities. And I just referenced that because that's the theme in looking at the ARP funds. They are looking at within their redesign and expand their jail facilities to address the effects of COVID-19 pandemic and mitigate any future pandemics. The expansion will include a mental health ward within the jail facility and a separate facility which will house a mental health diversion program. County of Tulare, California, a much smaller project, just under 6 million, same categories. Same concept, housing modules. Some of those are using for COVID-19 observation units for a minimum of 14 days. They're looking at different tests going on within their facilities. A lot of changes for their personnel. Also part of that project was personal protective equipment for staff. Cumberland County, Maine, 6.5 million, same categories. They're increasing the size of the medical wing within their jail and public safety facility to increase greater capacity and flexibility to handle multiple inmate health issues. They talk about negative pressure cells, other areas for medical clinic, other communicable diseases that happen there and require medical monitoring. They have medical units again that are going to be repurposed as a mental health psychiatric unit. St. Charles County, Missouri, 57 million. Again, refers to a jail and prison. They have a 506 bed facility Again, they have 3 of 5 floors that are general population housing. They're looking at doing their expansion and renovation to help somewhat with the social distancing. Again, a lot of that is due with the mental health, substance use areas as well. Sorry, it's like a paragraph. I'm sure you don't want me to read all of that to you. But it's a recurring theme in the examples that I have. Collin County, Texas, 134 million. Again, they have it in the categories of it's a public health, mental health. Their commissioners approved for the construction of a specialized medical and mental health infirmary of approximately 450 beds at their county adult detention center, and for capital investments directly related to ancillary infrastructure. Davis County, Utah, $8 million. Construction of a medical unit to serve the congregate setting of our county jail. And then the last one I have on the list is a $25 million project for Tarrant County, Texas. And that has to do with expenditures related to mental health jail diversion within there. And again, I can share this.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. Maybe the sheriff, this question's for the sheriff. Yes, sir. Just stretch your legs, you've been sitting down too long, I want to get you up. The old Gothic cells that are in the place of the old jail that we're gonna tear down, how many cells are in those? The old one, in the old tower,
So when you look at the campus currently, if it was totally opened up and everything was operational, you could have 1,438 inmates.
Yeah, but,
Subtract 900 from the tower.
so that's where the extra staffing will come from. Well, not
Well-
extra staffing, but the shift in staffing to fund the.
Now, currently, I have the maximum security facility, which is 60 beds.
Yeah.
I've shut that down a couple years ago.
Yeah.
The D blocks, the oldest part of the jail from 1954. That is closed. We open it up on weekends for the weekenders. So, but we have staff in those medical, mental health areas. The rehabilitation center, which is opened in 1978, we're utilizing both floors in there and we have staff there, so.
Closing those down is gonna save us money because we've had nothing but trouble with the variety of things from breakdowns to issues with inmates that have caused us legal problems. It's a good thing. Was that the rationale behind doing the other floor, the additional floor on the, I don't know, what floor you're calling it, the additional?
We're calling it the general population floor. Look, we're having an opportunity to put this project forward. Again, in 2020, I was in front of all of you and we were gonna get a whole new sheriff's office, or hopefully get a whole new sheriff's office in jail, if the voters would have passed the millage, right? So, you know, we have an opportunity, there's funding available, so I asked and I thought, let's throw in a general population floor, so we can move 108 inmates out of the tower, whether we move a certain classification, maybe we move all the females to that type of, you know, the wing. This way we can start closing down some of those sections in the tower. So, I mean, later on in life, you know, whoever follows me into the future, maybe if the funding's there or the appetite's there is, again, experts say the tower needs to be demolished. Take the tower down and you can build maybe a 600 bed facility that would take care of Macomb County's needs out into the future. But that was the reasoning to add that extra floor while we're in the process of design and construction.
It's a good riddance when they go, because it's really old and antiquated there, much like it was in the old youth home that we had here that was really Gothic and needed upgrading, just like Martha T. Berry was. Really outdated facilities that this county chose to invest in, to upgrade, to, you know, because it was just a necessary thing to have happen. Thank you, Sheriff. Another source of funding was referred to the federal government helping the Congresswoman, or Candace Miller, help out with the her projects. I was talking to some of our friends yesterday at Selfridge, and someone reminded me that Senator Stabenow was really committed to mental health, and where his career got started, and there might be some federal avenue to pursue a discussion about what's possibly, I mean, it's gonna be down the mill now. They're just about done with appropriations up there, but has that been something that you've pursued with any of our federal delegation, to sit down with them and say, this is what we're trying to do? Is there something that you can partner with them? Because this project's attracting many partners, as it should, because this is gonna be, has the potential to be, something that could be revolutionary for the whole country, doing what people think should be done out of common sense. Apprehending somebody, taking them to jail, assessing them for mental health, not putting them into jail, but give them the help they need so they're not out there breaking into our windows again, looking for drug money. Have you talked with anybody in the federal delegation about partnering with us and sharing, helping us with this project?
We've had different discussions with them, yes, on some components. One thing that we haven't talked about specifically today is wraparound services, and some of what you'll hear tomorrow in our presentation too. So we did apply for a technology piece of the project that was not approved last year. Some of the discussions come back to the ARP funds. The feds, provided us with the $170 million through that vein. So there's certainly too, when we start to look at programming, we can go back and have those discussions as we're always doing. And again, we did a lot of that work at the state level, knowing the funds that came into the state. And as you know, we were successful with the $25 million for the VERC project and last year in the state's budget. And we've asked them now for the $50 million for this project.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Vicki.
Hi.
You mentioned the juvenile center.
Yes.
Will the services for the juveniles remain in that building? And you're taking over part of it, or are you going to take over all of it?
What we're looking at that piece is we're going to look at it both ways. So we're going to look at having the current JJC facility as it is and house youth, and what are potentially some improvements we can do there. And we are having, the potential discussion of a regional center with the state and other partners. So will be a design to somewhat keep the youth housed in that facility and build a new residential treatment crisis stabilization unit in partnership with community mental health. And then we're doing the reverse. We'll look at a renovation project for the current JJC for the community mental health plans, and then building a more right-sized unit for the JJC to go into. So we're going to look at both at once.
Do you know what percentage capacity the current facility's at?
The current facility, there's 140 beds, and I think on average, we're right around 30 still. We staff for 40.
So we're quite a bit under capacity.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vicki, I'm looking at these numbers. So basically you've got a $230 million project here, of which you need $100 million in funding in one way, shape, or form, whether it's from the state, whether it's from the general fund, or whether it's from a bond
Correct,
offering
yes.
for all three. Kind of going backwards here, the original new jail plan you said earlier, maybe the sheriff said this, was $300 million. Is that correct?
The original jail plan, when we went to look at an entirely new facility, came in right around 370, 380 million.
Okay.
Back in 2018, 2019.
Okay, so basically we're about, for sake of numbers, almost about 50% of the cost here to do what you're asking in relative to this proposal in general. So your total square footage here, based on what you presented to us, about 177,000 square feet. Is that all new construction with demo and rebuild, or is a portion of that existing?
It's all new, the 177, 177 is all new.
All new, okay. So I think getting back to Commissioner Romano's question earlier in regards to a cost per foot that he was asking, theoretically, for the total cost of this project relative to 177,000 square feet, that's where our construction costs would be on a per square foot basis. Is that a fair estimate to the architect?
Right, but it's not all,
Excluding furniture, fixtures, things like that.
and
as
it's
far as-
not all bed space, because
Okay.
again, you have the court area, obviously you have the programming areas, you have community corrections office space, training division for the sheriff's office would be in there, community mental health has space in there. So there's other office type in that square footage number.
And then in regards to the contingency and the escalation amounts, my number was $34 million. I rounded up, but $34 million, so it's about 15% of your total ask here relative to the $230 million. Is 15% kind of like an industry standard, and is that what's happening right now in the state of construction costs and escalations and contingencies?
Sure, I'll let Mike Malone come back up.
Hi. As far as the overall contingency goes, there's a couple of contingencies. So there's a construction contingency, which, you know, ranges from 7 to 10% typically. There's an estimating contingency, you know, or estimating/design contingency. So the project's not fully designed, right? We're at a conceptual level at this moment. There's portions of the program that may grow a little bit. There's portions that may shrink. So there's that contingency to cover those fluctuations. And then the escalation is construction escalation based on a time. So we have a construction schedule, I don't remember, 24 months roughly, you know, so we're escalating the dollars to the midpoint of construction. And that's pretty typical. It varies year to year. The last couple of years, it's been very difficult to guesstimate what an escalation would be. We've seen escalations, you know, 15, 20%. We don't have that percentage in this budget, but it's kind of leveled off over the last year.
Okay. I know, you know, new jails have been built here locally in Wayne County, you know, city of Detroit, and those budgets have always gone over and above for one reason or another, whatever they are. Is there enough in your contingency and your escalation to man any type of increases to this relative to, would you be coming back to this board and say, well, we're $10 million short, now we're $20 million short, and if you did, what would it be specifically related to?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, but
That's
but
why
I
I'm
would-
asking it.
I would answer it that we need to control scope creep, okay? So we have a program that we spent, I don't know, a year and a half developing with the sheriff's department, exec's office and so forth, and that's what we're proposing. So these, you know, it's not just me, we have a whole team of experts that really develop this program. And we came up with a certain amount of square footage to accommodate a certain number of beds and so forth, and we need to stick to the program. So if somebody has a new idea, okay, that's fine, we could add this other component, but we need to take something away, right? I mean, that's our job and Plant Moran's job and the exec's office and sheriff's office to manage the scope. As far as unforeseen conditions and so forth, we're pretty confident in the contingencies that we've established, that based on this type of work that we're covered. It's an old building. We're going to be demolishing large portions of this facility. There's utilities, there's things we have to reroute, reconnect, because this building was cobbled together over decades and decades, right? So we have dollars in there to do that, and that's why some of the contingency is there to cover some of those things we can't see. But we're pretty confident that we have it covered. You know, if there's another pandemic, I mean, who knows what could happen from an escalation standpoint, material availability standpoint, and so forth. But we feel pretty confident. A lot of eyes have looked at these numbers. Nobody can predict the future, but you know, controlling the scope is key.
Okay. Second round, Commissioner Brown.
Mike, you spent a lot of time in the jail over the last, when did you first go in there? 17 was maybe?
We started in 2018, so we've spent many, many hours in there, yes.
You've got many plans that you've worked on that never came to fruition, and we shouldn't see any escalation in your numbers, right? You guys should be pretty much know your way around there, so you shouldn't be coming back to us for any
No.
additional fees because you know that building inside and out. You've been spending enough time in there, right? I mean,
We do.
what type of expense would lead you to come in for escalation?
And we don't nickel and dime our clients, you know, we have a clear picture of what you're asking us to do. We've established the program as we've mentioned. That's what our team's geared up to do, and that's what our proposal or contract amendment is based on.
I know sometimes old buildings throw you curveballs and you don't see when you break through the wall, but,
There'll be some for sure, yes.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've lost my other train of thought, so.
Okay, seeing no other questions on item. Good. Item E is the Partners in Architecture relative to that contract for $10,370,000 related to the scope. Are there any questions specifically for the architect? I'll use zero. Okay, seeing no questions. I think some have already been asked, but we're just going through the agenda as planned. Next would be Plant Moran Cressa relative to the owner representation services for this project in the amount of $4.8 million. Any questions for Plant Moran Cressa? I have one, since I don't see anyone on the board yet, so I'll start. In regards to this proposal, I know we've used Plant Moran for a number of different projects. Are there any contingencies in their contract relative to if this project was to be delayed or extended or anything like that? How does their fee possibly change?
Yes, good afternoon. So our fee is a fixed fee based upon the program total cost. It's based on the budget, it's based on a timeline. If that situation arises, there's language inside that contract for us to resolve an issue such as that. It require notification from the county to us that we were to pause our services. We would have a conversation and calibrate based on, any, revisions to the program schedule, the budget, et cetera.
Okay. And based on the timeline, was the timeline put together by Plant Moran or was it put together by the architect?
It was put together
Or conjunction?
as a team.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
There's generators, the jail's got they're scheduled to do some work on the generators over there. Hasn't F&O got a project coming up this year, deal with generators at the jail?
I'll let Ventrac speak to that.
And how does that affect what you're gonna be doing? We don't want a problem like, guess we don't have enough electric supply to supply our jail, like we ran out of water supply at the boathouse, right? So, I mean, is there any,
Yeah, so the jail in our capital projects, and one of the things we wrapped into here was an electrical study. And part of the electrical study is I guess holistically looking at the jail as a whole and the usage of our electricity within that facility. There is there's 2 large generators plus a few small generators. One of the things we were hoping to do as a result of that study is eliminate some of these older, smaller generators that need to be replaced and shifting the load to these bigger generators. So kind of eliminating and then adding bigger, new generators for the facility.
so we're not gonna do work and then have to replace them 2 years from now because we got the new building going in, right?
No, so all these capital projects will be done in conjunction with the larger scope central intake so that these generators will work in conjunction with that, so,
And you've already baked this into the plans, correct?
yes.
I expect you would, but I
Yep.
want to make sure, got to ask, right?
Yeah, there's $25 million in capital projects baked in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Was this contract bid out?
Thanks. No, it was not bid out for the county's contracting policy, professional services. One, do not need to be bid out. And two, based on our relationship with Plant Moran Cressa and the utilization of their services and the expertise needed, we did not take it out to bid.
Okay, I didn't know that this kind of service was professional services.
Yes, all three of the contracts on here are considered professional services.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing no other questions related to item F, move to item G, which is the Metro Technology Services IT agreement for the project. Any questions related to the IT portion of this? Commissioner Brown.
So these will be the general contractors for the electrical work, is that what I understand?
No, there are technology consultants that will provide consulting services, work with us, work with county IT. Metro Technology already does today. Their firm is on a lot of projects throughout the county, but also specifically in the jail. But they are tasked to be the lead consultant specifically for technology and make sure that all those technology needs tie in with the scope and the construction of the architectural design, and that we have everything included within our bid documents and what's needed
Yeah,
within the
we're a long way
facility.
away from a general contractor right now.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Vicki, in regards to that electrical, the study that Ben was talking about a minute ago, I saw that that's in the actual plan itself, I think for $300,000.
Correct, yes.
Is that something that will be bid out, or is that going to be part of the entire contract relative to like a general contractor will be hiring that out, or is that going to be done part of planning? How do you see that as far as the timeline goes?
Yeah, that'll be carried out through partners. I can let Mike speak to that.
Yeah, we'll be handling the electrical study. So we've partnered with a testing firm that does this, like they meter electrical loads, you know, so there's a whole bunch of that kind of work that has to happen. It's way over my head, but they're like our consultants, so
Okay.
that's really gonna be handled through our office.
Are there any other studies that are going to be done relative to this project besides the electrical side?
Nothing specific like that, but there's a lot of analysis that our engineers need to, you know, go through the entire building and all the pieces and parts that we're gonna be touching, obviously, working with Ben and his team, you know, making sure we do it right and we cover all the bases.
Okay. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. So Metro Technology Services for the IT, you're classifying as professional services also?
Yes,
So there is no hardware at all being delivered under this contract?
not by Metro Technology, no. That will be part of the build-out of the project. Their contract that's for you today is just for them to help us build that out, build the specs to the county specs and work with our IT department and also our technical services department.
So it's all the hardware and everything, the installation of wiring and all that will be other.
Will be
other
bid out as
contracts.
part, correct, correct.
Thank
as a
you.
major
Thank you, Chair.
construction.
Okay, seeing no other speakers on this item, on G, I think we are done with the plan. Well done, Vicki.
Great, thank you all for your patience, thanks to the team, obviously, and we are all here, again, if you need tours, you have any questions, if you want to compile them, send them to me, I can fan them out, and we will all be back here on June 13th and June 15th, if we make it.
And I know we'll
to
have
full
follow-up
board.
questions. Our staff will obviously send those to you so that we can get all those answers that were brought up today. And if there are additional questions, which I assume there will be, we'll forward those on to get those answered as well. So thank you
Great.
everyone for being here
Thank
and
you,
answering all the
everyone.
questions. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Please vote.
Chair, I'd like to take B and C separately.
All we're doing is we're forwarding these to next month's committee, B through G.
I understand. I'd like to take B and C separately.
Okay. Who was the original motion maker? We're not actually voting on these, we're just forwarding them.
I understand.
I don't know, Adriana, who made those motions,
Yeah,
if they're willing to, if they're
Romano is the
willing to
motion
make.
maker and Kraft is support.
Romano was the original motion maker, if
I'll amend
Commissioner.
my motion to eliminate or to bypass, what is it, C and G?
B and C.
B and G, it sounds like a newspaper.
Well,
She said B and
B and C.
B and C,
and C.
she would like those separated to, motion is to still forward them to the June Finance Audit and Budget Committee, but she would like those done separately.
I'll
that
make
correct?
the motion
Yes.
to start with A.
So I need a motion for just B, for just, you want them separately, Commissioner?
I believe we already voted on A, right?
Yeah, we did.
We-
Right, so I'd
yes.
like to just vote for B and C first, and then we can do D through G.
Okay, so I need a motion to forward 8B and 8C to the
And we do
June
that with
Finance.
a motion on the floor?
Pardon me?
We have a motion on the floor already. Do we have to withdraw that motion to put a different
Well,
motion
Commissioner
out?
Romano is amending that motion, which he didn't.
Amending it, he
Please-
didn't withdraw it.
So we have an amended motion for B and C here. So please vote on B and C. And the motion is to forward them to next month's committee.
Commissioner Sabatini, did your vote come through?
No, it did not come through, but I'm a yes.
Okay. Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, now I need a motion to forward items D through G to the June Finance Audit and Budget Committee meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Made by Van Sickle, supported by Zinner. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-1. Commissioner Song voting no.
Okay. All right, next item is 9A. This is a waiver of waiting period for reemployment of retiree budget analyst. I need a motion to recommend this to full board.
Support.
Made by Kraft, supported by Lucido. Steve?
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. I'm
Made you
here
wait.
asking.
Made you wait, Steve.
Yeah. Asking for your approval for me to bring back a recently retired employee on a part-time basis for the remainder of the year, 2 or 3 days a week. Basically coming back in the same capacity to assist in the preparation of the budget, as well as training her replacement. It's required by Charter Section 10.6. If you bring somebody back in the same capacity, which is my request, that the board will actually approve that rehire.
And Steve, really quick, in regards to training the replacement, is that replacement been hired already?
I currently have 3 vacancies. One of those vacancies will be filled on June 5th. Then the other 2, posting has come down and I got applications to review. So I've got 3.
Okay.
Who I'm gonna replace, I'm not exactly sure, but hopefully by the end of June, early July, we'll have this person full-time replacement on board. But I do have 3 vacancies. That's really where the funding is coming from
Okay.
for this request.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Will this person's rate of pay be what it was when he retired?
Yeah, that's the idea, bring her back to the same rate of pay, but with no benefits, obviously, other than FICA and Medicare.
Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other questions, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Next item is budget amendment for Freedom Hill Park Fund for a Ventrac tractor in the amount of $30,000. I need a motion to recommend 9B and 9C to full board.
Motion to recommend as full board.
Made by Lucido, supported by Wallace. Hi, Nicole. Thank you for
Hi.
waiting so long. What a trooper.
Cleared everybody out. Good afternoon, everybody. So the first one is going to be a budget amendment for the Freedom Hill fund balance, or for the Freedom Hill Park Fund. I'm looking to move $30,000 from the 2022 park fund balance to the 2023 capital outlay account to purchase the tractor, which is the next item on the agenda.
Okay, so you're looking to move, so
30,000.
that's
So
actually
there's
in the
already
free,
some money in there right now. There's just not enough to cover the total cost of the tractor.
how much is in the Freedom Hill Park Fund,
In totality, or just in like the vehicle?
the vehicle portion?
There's about 15,000 in there right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing no questions on this item, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, next item is item D, purchase of a 2023 Ford Transit low roof cargo van for Macomb Community Action for $44,582. Need a motion to recommend a full board.
Support.
Moved by Wallace, supported by Lucido. Nicole?
This is one of those ones that was previously pre-approved back in August. It's going into production. This is for MCA. Their weatherization department is actually expanding, so this is an addition to their fleet. That's $44,582.
Okay. Seeing no speaker. Oh, Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Was this bid out?
Lunghamer holds the state bid for Ford vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, items 9E and F, I'll take a motion to recommend them to full board.
So moved by Nard.
Support, Perna.
Made by Nard, supported by Perna in regards to the budget amendment for animal control for the 2019 Ford Super Duty for $50,010. Nicole?
This was requested last month because there is a delay in getting the new carcass truck that we previously had approved. So I was able to find a used one with relatively low miles. It's $50,010. So I'm requesting a budget amendment to move money from the COVID contingency fund to my vehicle capital account. And then that purchase is going to be from Russ Milne, which is the only one that I could find on the lot that wasn't a diesel that fit the specs that animal control needed. So we can actually pick that right up off the lot, and then they can start picking up all the carcasses around the county.
I move this.
Commissioner Kraft.
Nicole, thank you so much. Thank you for sticking around, and thank you for bringing this to us. I know we talked about this at the meeting last month. The 50,000 is for the purchase of the vehicle. What's the cost to rig it up, or is it good to go?
So I like a winch and a lift gate is what they're going to need to do that. It's about $10,000.
Okay.
So I already have that lined up, and then just basically probably under $1,000 to get it decaled.
Do you have a time frame on when it'll be on the road?
It should, honestly, if we pick it up, okay, after full board minutes, everything like that, by the time I get the check, it should be fully functional by next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Nicole, isn't it amazing we had a Plan B and you went out and found a Plan B for us?
Listen, I was
Isn't
like
that
driving
amazing?
around, like going
First truck
crazy.
fell apart,
Yeah.
and here we were with nobody in animal control for a truck, and Nicole went out and found us the truck.
So there, in the interim, like, Chief is gonna have to go out there by himself because of, the restrictions based on their, union contracts, but, they'll at least get something picked up and start the process going while we wait for the winch and the lift and everything to get outfitted and the second truck to come in.
Mr. Randazzo said they're gonna use the trunk of your car, you went out and found the truck. We appreciate
was it.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Chair, thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
I want to thank you again, like it has been said previously. I mean, thank you for the hustle and ingenuity to get out there and hustle to find a vehicle, because it is a public health. There's got a certain smell
Yeah,
in the north end of the county because of all the carcasses.
not for much
piling
longer.
up.
Yeah, not for much longer.
And so it's going to happen. So we appreciate you getting that vehicle on the road ASAP and a lot of work. And then we'll have a conversation with him about getting out more than just Wednesdays on the north end. It's going to be every day of the week till they get them all cleaned up. And we'll ask the executive about that. We can't tell him to do anything, but I'll suggest it.
He is very, like, he does know, like, he's like, as soon as we get this, we're gonna go out there, so I know that he is on it, so,
All right.
yeah.
They get it back. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you,
you're
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. I had a citizen suggest to me, aren't there any other vehicles that the county owns that are sitting around at different times, that they're not used all the time, that could be used for that?
None that, okay, so county side, there's absolutely nothing because they require a lift gate and a winch. Just per their union contracts, those guys aren't allowed to lift any carcasses without those two things. Roadside, they probably do have a vehicle, but none that's equipped with a lift and a winch. Generally, it's just like a dump truck. It either has a lift or has a winch, so not really both.
Might need a
And-
dump truck now.
Right? He's gonna have to make a lot of trips, yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, I had a meeting with MDOT yesterday, and I actually brought this up to them to see what they did for removal, because I brought up maybe we, work with MDOT to use some of their vehicles. Well, they contract it out. They don't even use MDOT vehicles either. So that's not even their contingency plan. That's
Yeah.
what they do. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Nicole, there's no more questions for you, so we
Okay,
can
good.
vote. Thank you again.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Nicole. Next item is item G, motion, fiscal year 2024 budget review calendar. Need a motion to recommend 9G and H to full board.
So moved by Nard.
Support, Wallace?
Made by Nard, supported by Wallace. Kyle, you want to talk about this, just high level, and then the worksheet, since these are together? Any changes that were made to it?
The only change to the supplemental worksheet is one of the focuses last year on the budget process was on excess funds or any unused funding. So we did put a little section in there asking departments to explain any substantial unused funding. Obviously, you guys don't care if they didn't use $5, or you might, but we're looking at big picture, large amounts of unspent money, and to see kind of maybe what they're doing to save money. And then on the budget review calendar, this is to get it in front of you guys. I know in the 2 budget cycles I've been through so far, there's recommendations on how to handle the scheduling of the budgets. This is our opportunity to get it in front of you and ask for any suggestions, changes. We did already set the dates of the budget calendar previously in the year, so this is just when the departments are scheduled to go before us. This is not the specific dates they're going, it's just which date each department's assigned to.
And Kyle, just for clarity, on the 26th here, that meeting will start at 1 o'clock? Or is that a typo?
I will have to clarify that.
Because all of them start at 3 except for that one.
That one might be, you said it was the
26th October.
We'll have to clarify, but that is one that traditionally will go long. I know we try to not hold you guys here forever, so.
Okay, so we'll just get clarity for that before Thursday. And then in regards to the actual worksheet, we had added that item in there. If commissioners see something else that they are interested in adding to this checklist or this form, please let us know ASAP, have a conversation with me, Kyle, whomever, so that we can talk about it. And if we do need to add something else that would help the budget process, I'm open to that discussion. Seeing no other questions for these, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Next item is correspondence, open bids as of May 16th, 2023. Need a motion to receive and file.
So moved, Wallace?
Made by Wall, supported by Kraft. Seeing no questions, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Next item is public participation. Would anyone from the public like to speak on any item? You have 3 minutes. Only one person in the audience is smiling, so we'll say no one is going to speak today. So we will close public participation. Next item is commissioner comments. Any commissioners have comments? Seeing none.
Motion to adjourn.
By Romano, supported by Zinner. Please vote. Enjoy the rest of
Thank you,
your
Mr.
week,
Chairman.
Commissioners. See you
Good
tomorrow.
job.